The wagon wheels carved deep ruts in the autumn dirt as Sarana Volkihar sat bound and blindfolded, listening to men barter her life away like livestock. The rope burned against her wrists. Her breath came shallow through the coarse cloth covering. Her eyes, "Look at those markings," came the voice of Councilman Hayes. Dark patches across her arms like Satan's own fingerprints. "The preacher says she's been seducing our boys with that cursed skin." This from Mayor Whitmore, his words thick with disgust. Young Fletcher near fought his own father defending her beauty. Unnatural it is. Sarana pressed her lips together. The familiar shame crawled up her spine like cold water. 22 years of whispers. 22 years of eyes that turned away. Through the blindfold's rough weave, she sensed movement. Horses shifting, leather creaking. The Comanche had been silent since the negotiations began. "She's got the devil's own hold on them," Hayes continued. "Making good Christian men see beauty where God intended warning." The markings spread across Sarana's skin like scattered ink. Dark islands on pale shores. Her mother had called them beautiful once. Alina Volkihar had traced them with gentle fingers, whispering stories of angels who painted children with starlight. Elena had been dead 10 years now. The fever took her body. The town's accusations had taken her spirit long before. "You take her far from here," Whitmore was saying. "Trade's fair, supplies for the problem." Problem. The word settled in Sarana's chest like a stone. Footsteps approached. Moccasins, not boots. She smelled leather and sage, wind and wood smoke. A hand touched her chin. Not rough, not gentle. Considering, the blindfold fell away. Sarana blinked against the late afternoon sun. The Comanche warrior crouched before her, his dark eyes studying her face. Not with the familiar mixture of fear and fascination she knew from Whitmore Creek. Something else lived in that gaze. Something that made her breath catch. "This is the woman?" His English carried only the slightest accent. "That's her," Hayes said quickly. "Marked by darkness she is. You can see it plain." The warrior's gaze moved to Sarana's arms where the markings created abstract patterns against her skin. His expression never changed. Behind him, 2 other Comanches sat their horses in patient silence. "Your people fear her," the warrior said. "Not a question. Fear what she might do," Whitmore corrected. "The preacher says such markings are signs of demonic influence. Makes men lose their godly sense." Sarana wanted to speak. To defend herself. To rage against their casual cruelty. But the words stayed trapped behind her teeth, held there by years of learning that her voice only made things worse. The warrior stood. "I am hawk that soars. My people have other beliefs about such markings." He moved to his horse, a paint mare that nickered softly at his approach. From his saddlebags, he retrieved a leather pouch. The supplies had already been loaded into the wagon: blankets, salt, iron tools. Her life's worth measured in practical goods. "This trade is acceptable," Hawk That Soars said. Hayes exhaled with visible relief. "Good, good. You'll take her far from here? She will not return to trouble your people." The words carried weight Sarana couldn't interpret. Promise or threat, she couldn't tell which. Hawk That Soars cut. The ropes binding her hands. Blood rushed back into her fingers. He offered his arm to help her stand. She hesitated, then accepted. His strength was steady, sure. "Can you ride?" he asked. "Yes." Her first word since the wagon had stopped. It came out smaller than she'd intended. He led her to a second horse, a gentle-looking mare with intelligent eyes. "This is soft step. She will carry you safely." Sarana mounted with practiced ease. Her Aunt Martha had owned horses before the bad harvest. Before everything went wrong. Aunt Martha. The woman who had raised her after Elena's death. The woman who had stood silent in her kitchen yesterday morning while the men explained their plan. Who had nodded when they asked if Sarana would be ready for transport. The betrayal cut deeper than the rope burns on her wrists. "You're doing the right thing," Hayes called out as they prepared to leave. "That girl's been nothing but trouble since she came of age. Drawing attention with those markings. Making our boys think impure thoughts." Hawk That Soars turned his horse. "In my experience, impure thoughts come from impure hearts, not from the color of skin." The simple words fell like stones in still water, ripples of meaning spreading. Outward, they rode west toward the setting sun. Behind them, Whitmore Creek grew small against the horizon, the only home Serrana had ever known, disappearing with each hoofbeat. She thought of Ezio Auditore, the blacksmith's son. How his eyes had softened when he looked at her markings. How he'd whispered that she was beautiful, that the town was wrong, that God made no mistakes. How he'd promised to help her escape. The memory twisted in her chest. Last night, he'd come to her window, told her to meet him at the old mill. Said he'd found a way to get her safely out of town before the morning's trade. She'd believed him, trusted him, loved him. Instead, she'd found his father waiting with 2 other men. The trap had been perfect. Her last hope transformed into her final humiliation. "You're wondering if you can trust me," Hawk That Soars said. Without turning around, Serrana startled. "I don't know what to think. That's honest. Honesty is valuable." They rode in silence as the sun touched the horizon. The prairie stretched endlessly in all directions, grass bending under the autumn wind. Serrana had never been this far from town. The vastness should have frightened her. Instead, it felt like breathing room. "The markings on your skin," Hawk That Soars said eventually. "My grandmother had similar ones. Different pattern, same spirit." "Your grandmother?" "She was considered blessed, chosen by the spirits to carry special medicine." Serrana touched her arm where the darkest markings spread like wings. "These have never brought me anything but suffering. Perhaps you were living among the wrong people." The words settled into something tender and broken inside her chest. For the first time in years, she felt the possibility of belonging somewhere. To someone. Behind them, Whitmore Creek vanished into shadow. Ahead lay uncertainty, danger, and the faintest whisper of hope. Serrana urged her horse forward, riding toward whatever waited in the gathering darkness. The Comanche camp rose from the prairie like something grown from the earth itself. Hide lodges curved against the wind. Smoke spiraled upward from cooking fires. Children's laughter carried on the evening air. Serrana's hands trembled against the reins. Every eye in the camp turned toward her as they rode in. She'd expected hostility. Instead, she found curiosity. Women emerged from their lodges, men paused in their work. No one pointed, no one whispered about demons or curses. Hawk That Soars dismounted near the largest lodge. An older man stepped forward, his weathered face kind but watchful. Silver streaked his long hair. Eagle feathers hung from his war shirt. "Father," Hawk That Soars said, "this is Serrana, the woman from the white settlement." Chief Running Bear studied her with eyes that held depths of knowledge. His gaze lingered on her markings without judgment, without fear. "You are welcome here," he said simply. The words hit her like rain on drought-cracked earth. Welcome. When had anyone ever said that to her? A young woman approached, her movements graceful as water. Intricate beadwork decorated her dress. Her smile held warmth that reached her eyes. "I am Pocahontas," she said. "The chief's daughter. You look tired." Serrana slid from her horse, her legs nearly buckled. 2 days of riding. A lifetime of rejection. The weight of it all pressed down on her shoulders. "Come," Pocahontas said gently. "I'll show you where you can rest." She led Serrana to a smaller lodge at the camp's edge. Inside, buffalo robes covered the ground. A small fire crackled in the center. The air smelled of sage and cedar. "This is yours while you decide what comes next," Pocahontas said. Decide. The word felt foreign. No one had ever asked Serana to decide anything about her own life. I don't understand why you're being kind to me. Pocahontas settled beside. The fire, your markings tell a story. In our way, such patterns speak of spirits touching a person before birth, marking them for special purpose. Special purpose. Serana touched her arm where the darkest patches spread. Your people truly believe this? My great-aunt bore similar marks. She became our most powerful medicine woman. The spirits spoke. Through her patterns, Serana sank onto the soft buffalo robes. For 22 years, she'd been told her skin was a curse, a sign of evil, evidence of her mother's supposed sins. Now this woman spoke of spirits and purpose and power. Rest now, Pocahontas said. Tomorrow we begin teaching you our ways. Sleep came easier than it had in years. No prayers whispered outside her door. No fear of morning bringing fresh accusations. Just the gentle sounds of a camp settling into night. Dawn brought the scent of cooking meat and burning wood. Serana emerged from her lodge to find Pocahontas waiting with a bowl of stew and flat bread. Eat, she said, then we work. The days that followed blurred together in a rhythm of learning. Pocahontas taught her to tan hides, to weave baskets, to identify healing plants. The work felt natural in her hands, purposeful. Other women joined. Their lessons. They spoke to her in broken English mixed with Comanche words. They showed her how to braid her hair in their style, how to move in their clothing, how to see beauty in patterns she'd been taught to hide. Hawk That Soars appeared often during these lessons. He brought her small gifts, a bone needle carved with intricate designs, a pouch for gathering herbs, a blanket woven with colors that matched her markings. He never spoke of obligation or duty, never mentioned the trade that brought her here. Instead, he asked about her thoughts, her dreams, her fears. You're afraid of something, he said one evening as they walked beside the river. Serana watched the water flow over smooth stones. I'm afraid of hoping too much. Hope is dangerous, he agreed. It asks us to believe in futures we cannot see. Your people have been kinder to me than anyone in my whole life. But I'm still the woman they traded away. Still marked with what others called evil. Hawk That Soars stopped walking. He faced her fully, his dark eyes serious. Do you know why I accepted the trade? Because you needed supplies. We could have gotten supplies anywhere. I accepted because I saw something in you that your people were blind to. What did you see? Strength. The kind that comes from surviving what should have broken you. His words wrapped around her heart like warm hands. She'd never thought of her survival as strength, only as stubborn endurance. There's something else, he continued. Something I should tell you. Before he could speak, shouts erupted from the camp. They ran toward the noise, finding warriors gathering around a messenger on a lathered horse. White settlers, the messenger gasped, moving west, building close to winter hunting grounds. Chief Running Bear's face hardened. How many? 50. Families, maybe more. They're clearing trees, building permanent structures. Serana's blood turned cold. Whitmore Creek was expanding. The people who'd cast her out were moving closer to the only place she'd ever felt safe. They'll bring soldiers, one warrior said. Demand we move further west. This is our territory, another replied. Our ancestors are buried in that ground. Arguments erupted. Voices raised in anger and fear. Serana found herself caught between two worlds again, the one that had rejected her, the one that had embraced her. Hawk That Soars appeared at her side. You know these people. Their ways, their intentions. I know they fear what they don't understand. And they don't understand your people any more than they understood me. Could you speak for us? Help them see reason? The question hung in the air like smoke. Serana looked around the camp, at the women who'd taught her their crafts, at the children who played without fear, at the men who'd never looked at her with disgust. I don't know if they'd listen to me, she said finally. But you'd try? She met his gaze, saw the trust there. The hope, the same emotion she'd been afraid to feel. Yes, she said, I'd try. As the council continued late into the night, Serana stood at the edge of the firelight. The wind carried sense of home and horizon, of past and future, of the woman she'd been and the woman she was becoming. Tomorrow would bring decisions, dangers, the possibility of losing everything she'd found here. But tonight, she was exactly where she belonged. The fire crackled. The stars wheeled overhead. And Serana Volkihar prepared to fight for the first home that had ever truly wanted her. The stranger arrived with the dawn, his government badge catching the first light. Indian Agent Slade dismounted his horse with practiced authority, his pale eyes scanning the camp with calculating interest. Serana watched from beside Pocahontas as the man approached Chief Running Bear. Something in his smile made her skin crawl, too wide, too eager. Chief, Slade said, his voice carrying false warmth, I come with news from Washington. The government wants to help resolve this land dispute peacefully. Running Bear's expression remained neutral. What does Washington propose? Relocation, good land further west, better hunting, away from the settlers' expansion. The words fell like stones in still water. Serana saw the tension ripple through the gathered warriors. Their hands moved closer to their weapons. This is our territory, Hawk That Soar said quietly. Our ancestors rest in this ground. Slade's smile never wavered. Progress requires sacrifice. The settlers are coming whether we want them or not. Better to move voluntarily than be forced. Serana stepped forward. Her knowledge of English and growing understanding of Comanche gave her unique insight into the conversation's undercurrents. What if the settlers could be convinced to settle elsewhere? She asked, Slade's gaze fixed on her. His eyes narrowed slightly. You're the woman from Whitmore Creek, the one they traded away. Heat flooded her cheeks. Even here, her past followed her. I am, she said steadily. Interesting. You might be useful in negotiations. Someone who understands both sides. The way he said it made her stomach turn. She was being evaluated, categorized, reduced to her potential usefulness. I'll consider it, she said. After Slade left, promising to return within the week, Serana found herself walking alone by the river. The water moved over stones worn smooth by time. Constant change, constant adaptation. Footsteps approached. She turned to find Pocahontas, her face troubled. That man brings bad medicine, Pocahontas said. His words taste of lies. You think he's not here to help? Men like him profit from conflict. Peace serves no one's interests but ours. The observation hit Serana with uncomfortable truth. She'd seen enough of men's nature in Whitmore Creek to recognize ambition disguised as duty. There's something else, Pocahontas continued. Something I learned from the women who visit the trading posts. About your preacher. Serana's chest tightened. What about Frollo? He's been taking money from the church collection, saying it's for mission work, but the money goes to his own pockets. The revelation struck her like lightning. How do you know this? The trader's wife. She keeps the books. Sees the discrepancies. Your preacher needed someone to blame for his missing funds. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Frollo's sermons about her demonic influence. The timing of the Vayanth accusations. The town's sudden urgency to remove her. I was his scapegoat, Serana whispered. Your markings made you an easy target. Different enough to seem dangerous. Vulnerable enough to sacrifice. Rage built in Serana's chest. Not the hot anger of youth, but the cold fury of betrayal recognized. Her mother's reputation destroyed, her own life traded away. all to cover one man's greed. "There's more," Pocahontas said gently. "Your Aunt Martha, she knew." The words hit harder than any physical blow. Serana sank to her knees beside the water. Martha had known, had stayed silent, had helped orchestrate the trade that sent her away. "She was afraid," Pocahontas continued, "afraid of being connected to scandal. Chose her reputation over your life." Serana stared at her reflection in the moving water. The woman looking back bore little resemblance to the frightened girl who'd been traded away. Her hair hung in Comanche braids. Her clothes followed their patterns. Her posture spoke of belonging, but the pain remained. The deep wound of family. Betrayal. "I need to go back," she said finally. "To confront them? To stop what's coming. Slade isn't here to prevent war. He's here to cause it." Pocahontas sat beside her. "You think he wants fighting? War means government intervention. Intervention means forced relocation. Relocation means land opens up for settlement. And settlements mean profit for men with the right connections." The logic was brutal in its simplicity. Create the problem, offer the solution. Profit from both sides. "If you return to Whitmore Creek, they might kill you," Pocahontas warned. "If I don't, they'll kill your people. Or your people will kill them. Either way, innocents die." That evening, Serana sat with Hawk That Soars outside his lodge. The stars wheeled overhead, unchanged by human schemes and suffering. "You're planning something dangerous," he said. "I'm planning something necessary. Tell me." She explained her suspicions about Slade, about Frollo's corruption, about the web of lies and greed that had entangled both their peoples. "You could die," he said simply. "I could. But if I do nothing, we all might." He was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of difficult truth. "You would do this for people who cast you out? I would do it for people who took me in." The distinction mattered. She wasn't trying to save Whitmore Creek out of forgiveness. She was trying to save the Comanche out of love. "I'll go with you," he said. "No, this is something I have to do. Alone, as a bridge between worlds. And if that bridge burns?" She looked at him then, really looked. Saw the man who'd seen beauty where others saw curse. Who'd offered belonging where others offered rejection. "Then at least I'll have tried to build something, instead of just surviving it." The next morning, Serana prepared for her journey. She packed light, water, food, the bone needle Hawk That Soars had given her. A reminder of the life she'd found. Here, Pocahontas brought her a horse. "Swift Runner will carry you safely, if I don't return." "You will. The spirits don't mark people for failure." The words carried more faith than Serana felt, but she mounted the horse anyway. Turned east toward the rising sun. Toward the town that had rejected her and the man who'd used her. Behind her, the Comanche camp continued its morning rhythms. Ahead lay Whitmore Creek, where truth waited to be spoken and justice demanded to be served. The wind carried the scent of change, of endings and beginnings, of a woman riding toward her reckoning. Serana rode into Whitmore Creek at midday, when the sun cast sharp shadows between the buildings. The town looked smaller. Then she remembered, meaner. The wooden structures seemed to lean inward on themselves, harboring secrets. Children stopped their games to stare. Women clutched their shawls tighter and hurried indoors. Men emerged from shops and doorways, their faces hard with recognition and something else. Fear. She wore Comanche clothing now. Beaded dress, braided hair, moccasins that made no sound against the packed earth. But it was her bearing that had changed most. The way she sat her horse. The way she met their stares without flinching. The woman they'd traded away was gone. In her place sat someone they didn't recognize. Serana dismounted outside the church. The building squatted against the sky, its white paint peeling in the harsh sun. Inside, she could hear Preacher Frollo's voice raised in afternoon prayer. She pushed open the heavy doors. Frollo stood at the pulpit, his pale hands gripping the wooden edges. His sermon died mid-sentence when he saw her. The scattered congregation turned in their pews. Mrs. Henderson gasped. Old Tom Fletcher reached for his walking stick. Sarana Volkihar, Frollo breathed. You dare return to God's house? I return to my mother's house, she said clearly. The house where Elena Volkihar prayed every Sunday until you destroyed her reputation. Frollo's face flushed red. Your mother was a sinner, a practitioner of dark arts. My mother was a scapegoat, just as I was. She walked down the center aisle, her moccasins silent on the wooden floor. The congregation pressed back into their pews as if her presence might contaminate them. I know about the missing collection money, preacher. Frollo's hands tightened on the pulpit. I don't know what lies the savages have filled your head with. The trader's wife keeps careful records. She knows where the money really went. A murmur rippled through the congregation. Sarana saw understanding dawn on several faces. Questions they'd never thought to ask suddenly demanding answers. You needed someone to blame for your theft, she continued. Someone different enough to seem dangerous, vulnerable enough to sacrifice. My markings made me perfect. You speak blasphemy, Frollo snarled. Your very presence defiles this sacred space. Then why don't you explain to these good people where their donations actually went? Why don't you show them the mission you claim to be funding? Frollo opened his mouth, closed it. The silence stretched like a held breath. She's bewitched, he said finally. Living among heathens has corrupted her mind. Has it corrupted the trader's ledgers too? Has it corrupted the bank records in the county? Seat, more murmurs. Louder now. Sarana saw doubt creeping into faces that had once accepted Frollo's word without question. The church doors opened behind her. Agent Slade stepped inside, his government badge glinting in the dusty light. Behind him came Mayor Whitmore and Councilman Hayes. Miss Volkihar, Slade said smoothly. How convenient. I was hoping to speak with you about your peace negotiations, about preventing unnecessary bloodshed. Sarana turned to face him fully. Whose blood are you hoping to shed, Agent Slade? I'm here to prevent conflict, not cause it. Are you? Because conflict serves your interests perfectly. War means government intervention. Intervention means forced relocation. And relocation means land opens up for settlement. Slade's smile faltered slightly. You're mistaken about my intentions. Am I? Tell me, who owns the company that's been buying up land options west of here? The company that profits when new territory becomes available for development. The question hung in the air like smoke. Slade's face had gone carefully blank. You've been stirring up trouble on both sides, Sarana continued. Promising the settlers protection while telling the Comanche they need to move. Creating the very conflict you claim to prevent. You have no proof of these accusations. I have the testimony of both peoples. I speak both languages. I've seen both sides of your lies. Mayor Whitmore stepped forward. What exactly are you saying, girl? I'm saying Agent Slade has been manipulating this situation for profit. Just as Preacher Frollo manipulated my mother's death and my exile to cover his theft. The congregation erupted in angry voices. Some directed at her, others at Frollo, still others demanding answers from Slade. Enough, Whitmore shouted. These are serious accusations. Then investigate them, Sarana said. Send someone to check the bank records. Send someone to verify Slade's company connections. Send someone to ask the Comanche what they were really told. And if we find you're lying, then you can trade me away again. But if I'm telling the truth, then you need to decide what kind of people you want to be. The choice hung before them like a crossroads, comfortable lies or difficult truth. Easy blame or hard justice. Slade moved toward the door. I don't have to. Listen to the ravings of a savage-raised woman. No, Serana said quietly. But they do. She gestured to the congregation. To the people who'd lived with Frollo's lies for years. Who'd sent their children to hear his sermons. Who'd trusted him with their money and their souls. Ask yourselves why your donations never built the mission he promised. Ask yourselves why the woman who nursed your children and buried your dead suddenly became a witch. Ask yourselves who profits when you hate what you don't understand. One by one, faces began to change, not all of them. But enough. Mrs. Henderson stood slowly. I remember Alana Volkihar. She was a good woman, a faithful woman. She was cursed, Frollo protested. Her daughter bears the mark of it. Her daughter bears the mark of something, said Tom Fletcher. But maybe we were wrong about what? The old man's words carried weight. Serana felt something shift in the room, not acceptance. Not forgiveness, but possibility. The Comanche don't want war, she said. They want to live in peace on land that's rightfully theirs. But if they're pushed, they'll fight, and innocent people on both sides will die. What do you propose? Whitmore asked. Honor the existing treaties. Stop the illegal settlement expansion. And investigate the men who've been profiting from this conflict. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't complete justice. But it was a beginning. Outside, the wind carried the scent of approaching storm. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon. But for the first time in her life, Serana wasn't afraid of the coming weather. She'd spoken truth to power. She'd honored both her old life and her new one. The woman who'd been traded away like livestock had returned as someone who could broker peace. The future remained uncertain. But it was a future she'd helped shape. A future where different didn't mean dangerous. Where the mark that had once cursed her might finally become the bridge it was always meant to be. Thunder rolled across the prairie. And Serana Volkihar prepared to ride home to the people who'd taught her that belonging wasn't about blood or birthplace, but about choosing to build something better together. And that is all to the story, for now. Please let me know where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will create a story there. Consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. And if you enjoy our content, click this video on your screen. I promise you, it's worth watching. See you tomorrow.